triple shot. What's up? What'd we get?
2 packages.
2 packages. Oh, more Savage. More booty shorts.
I know. No, it's a sports belt. And a lifting belt.
A what?
A lifting belt.
Do you lift heavy enough to need a belt?
Rude.
What'd you get? What'd you get?
Look at this. Pineapples. Look how awesome.
2 pood. You pood.
Dude.
What's a pood? Do you know?
A Russian unit of weight measure. Oh, new Velcro.
Yeah.
Make sure it fits.
It should be coming, what, like a couple of inches for this strap and this strap? Yeah. It looks like the right size.
I put this one through here.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Man, we might want one smaller.
Smaller?
They have a quadruple XS.
No. This is tight though. I mean, I could go a little looser.
Okay. All right.
Pineapples.
I want to see. Sweet. What's in the other bag?
Can't breathe.
Need a belt to open the bag.
Yes.
So this is more booty shorts.
No. Although I do want some. It's my first Savage sports bra.
Savage. Ah. Green.
I like it. It's the cups you put in them.
I got it. Very cool. Nice back. Does that mean you're lifting today? Very nice.
Yep.
Lots of trash. Hey guys, today we are talking about weightlifting and specifically a strength block for weightlifting. So when I say a strength block, we're talking about one mesocycle or one season in relation to our previous post of training. So we have just like in any other sport, we have off seasons and in season, pre-season. So for example, in weightlifting, if we're training for one meet, the few weeks leading up to that might be our pre-season, or in this case, a contest prep where we're really zeroing in on the things, the main lifts that are going to get us strong for the best possible performance for that lift, or those 2 lifts, clean and jerk and snatch, versus a off-season style training, like football players would do, say January through June, doing a traditional off-season strength and conditioning program. For weightlifters, we have some times where we're just trying to get stronger. Some are trying to get bigger. So we could do a hypertrophy phase, followed by a strength phase, followed by contest prep, which would be a very, very much just a straight power phase leading up to the season or the event in this case. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at a general strength program for weightlifters. This is by no means the only way to do it. This is just one way we've done it and had very good success. The reason we have success is we use something called relative intensity. And it's nothing new. It's been around for a while. I remember in the Strength and Conditioning Association, NSCA book, it talks about relative intensity. I remember reading it back then and kind of being confused by it, but always going back to try to understanding that concept a little bit more. Because what it does is it ensures that we have an increased effort each week. So if we do a certain rep range, we look at, say, 75% of our 1 rep max, we might do somewhere in the neighborhood. I've got our 1RM chart here. The maximal allowable would be about 10 reps. Okay, so if we did 10 reps at 75%, the effort it takes to do 10 at 75% would be the same effort it would take to do 1 rep at your max weight at 100%. So that being said, if I did 7 sets of, or not 7 sets, if I did 10 reps at 75% for 2 or 3 sets, and then I go up to, just to make another near progression, and I go to, say, 77%, the maximal allowable reps for 77%, if we look at our chart, is 9. Okay, so if I did then 9, and then I go to 80%, that would be 8, and so on and so forth, my effort level is 100% every time. So therefore, A, I'm not progressing, and B, that's too much intensity over a long time. You can't, I shouldn't say you can't, but don't like to speak in absolutes, but it would be really hard to push that kind of intensity all the time. So if I wanted to start a strength training program, and I want to start it around, I could start it at, say, 80% of my 1RM, because we know trying to get stronger, trying to get more powerful, we want to use weights that are 80% or more, and we can go a little below that. But what would be more effective is if we used a relative intensity of 80% and go up from there. Again, relative intensity means the sets and reps and the weight together give me a feeling of whatever a certain percent. For example, on the chart, you're going to see that on our actual program, we started at 77% of my 1RM for 4 sets of 3. That has a relative intensity of 83%. Now, how I got that 83% is such that I took the 77%, which is, that was kind of an arbitrary number. I could have started at 75. That's the lowest I probably could have started, because looking at a chart called Prelipin's chart, and that's what's up here right now, that's what you see. Using Prelipin's chart, you're going to see that if I'm going to train for strength, right, I want to be, starting around that 80%. And I remember I said I want my relative intensity to start around 80%, or around there. And so I went to, I took the reps per set in that 70 to 80% range, and I get, if I picked 6 reps, okay, 6 reps at these different percentages, it's going to come out to, a relative intensity that's a little too low. Or too high. And so to get it the right number of sets or reps per set, I'm going to, again, reference National Strength and Conditioning Association guidelines for multiple events for strength and power, which is going to be somewhere between 3 and 5. And so I picked 3. That was a manageable weight. So if I'm doing 3 reps per set, I'm going to need to do at least 75% of my 1RM to start with, to ensure my relative intensity is 80%. So I got that by I took the 3 reps per set. Then I went over to this next chart that you see, the percent of 1RM and repetitions allowed at that particular percentage. And I said I'm doing 3 per set, right? So if I look at 3 per set, that would be 93%. So if I did 93% of my 1RM for 3 reps, it would feel like I'm doing my 1RM. So if I want to start training and have somewhere to go, right, I can't always work at that 100%. So I'm doing 3 reps per set. I'm going to look at what percentage would give me a relative intensity of around 80. So if I did 70%, I would take 70% divided by that 93. We found that on that chart, because I'm doing 3 repetitions allowed per set. I would get a relative intensity of around 75. I think it comes out to be. I'm not doing the math right now. But if I work up to 75%, so 75% divided by that 93 gives me a relative intensity of about 80%. So that number, that 0.80 that you get, means that if I did 75% for 3 reps, per set, that effort is going to feel like 80% of my 1RM. So now if I increase the next week and I go to 82% relative intensity, that will be a small increase in weight on the bar, but my effort goes up incrementally each week. And that's how we can guarantee that we get definite increases in effort from week to week. If I used just straight linear numbers, as I said before, we're going to be hitting close to 100%, or we'll hover around the same percent of relative intensity each week, meaning even though the weight goes up, it feels about the same effort level, right? And we want to make sure the effort level goes up. So yes, the absolute number on the bar does continue to go up because we're using the same number of reps per set. So if we look at our actual program, then that's what's popping up now. You're going to see that my relative intensities, I actually started at 83%. And again, I could have started at 80, which would have been 77% of my 1RM, but I started at 83% relative intensity. And I got that by taking the 77 divided 0.77 divided by 0.93. That gives me 83% relative intensity. So the next week I went up 3% relative intensity to 86. And if you do the math, that comes out to actually about 80% of my 1RM for that same 4 sets of 3. I have a back off week for week 3, and then I really hit it hard for week 4 at 90% of my 1RM, or of my relative intensity. So what we're saying is that at 83% of my 1RM for 4 sets of 3 feels like 90% effort, like a 9 out of 10. So if I could call that a 9. So I can go up now in week 8 and look at that relative intensity. It's 93, so it's a little bit heavier. And then week 12 is 100. So we've really pushed the intensity, the effort level has gone up gradually each week. With obviously the exception every third week we're doing a back off week for just to save energy, to kind of recoup, have some CNS recovery before we hit it hard every 4th week, as you can see. Now looking back days 1 through 6, you'll see the exercise selection. The last thing I'll say about this is you'll see where it might say medium, or H, which would be heavy, L would be light. This refers to the way we're periodizing the each microcycle, which is a daily undulating periodization. In other words, I'm going to have some heavy days, some light days, some medium days, as opposed to doing straight, every day is 70, in this case, week 1, every day is 77% across the board. It will be 77% for one of those lifts, but I'll hit other lifts, that same week. So for example, day 1 is a front squat medium, and day 2 is a pause front squat, which would be my light front squat day. And then I have a heavy front squat day way over on day 6. So I'm front squatting 3 days a week, but I'm not doing a heavy front squat at that 4 sets of 3 at 77% every time. I'm only doing that on day 6. So the heavy days will refer to the percents above on that little graph above. So I hope that makes sense. This is how I progress a strength block, and you can see again, we go up in absolute percents as well as relative intensities, but it changes based on the sets and reps that you do, so that way I can ensure getting stronger every week. I know relative intensity is kind of confusing, so please ask some questions. Send them my way, and we will straighten this out so that you can program and guarantee to get stronger. There's other ways to do it, but this way is almost fail-safe.